Look, I remember being brand new to real estate investing, having no clue what to do, no clue who to talk to. Welcome to the Wealth Talk. I am your host, Zach, with Brick by Brick Wealth. I thought that the very first episode should be the 5 mistakes that all new real estate investors make. Because, look, I remember being brand new to real estate investing, having no clue what to do, no clue who to talk to. Thankfully, I got introduced to a couple of mentors that are still my mentors and coaches to this day. And they have taught me so much about real estate investing over the past almost decade. And I'm going to give that to you. So it is perfectly fine. I want to say this. It is perfectly fine for you to feel like you don't know what's happening. Like it just seems like there's so much to do in real estate investing. There's so much to talk about. And while that's true, it does not have to be hard. And I'm going to prove that to you. So, starting today, this is going to be your journey to a better future through real estate investing. So, without further ado, let's go right into the first biggest mistake that I see a lot of new real estate investors make. I've even seen some experienced ones make this mistake, but for sure, new real estate investors. One of the biggest mistakes you could ever make is not fully researching that property. Now, there's so many things we could talk about, but I feel like if you don't do your homework, it doesn't matter how much money you do or don't have. It doesn't matter how good that property could or could not be. If you don't research this property and you don't take the time to understand what this property is going to do for you, you will lose every single time. There's no winning if you don't do this properly. So, a few things to take into consideration when you're researching a property. First thing is and these are in no particular order. One thing is potential renovations, right? You want to look at that property and say, okay, I see the current condition of this property. How much money is it going to take for me to one, make it livable if it's not livable? Or two, what is it going to take for me to take this property from something that's maybe middle of the road to the top tier of this area? What is the top rent I could get for this area? And that's something else we're going to talk about is, how to figure out rent and all that kind of good stuff. But not knowing if your property needs renovations or not when you're going to buy it is huge. That's why during the buying process, you're going to do things like inspections and all that good stuff to really fully understand your property. But look, let me tell you, there's been several times where I've gotten into a property personally early in my career and didn't realize that it was going to take 15 grand to get it back up to a good standard because it needed flooring. You had to paint. There was some little odds and ends. The AC, I live in the South, so the AC is a huge thing. Maybe that's not fully working right. If you don't understand this going into a property, I promise you will lose every single time. Another big thing is maintenance. Every property is going to need maintenance. I don't care what the property looks like. It could be a brand new house that you just bought. It was just built last month, never been lived in. There will be maintenance. There's going to be things like I mentioned in the South, we have AC that we use all the time. So your HVAC system is going to need constant maintenance. Your landscaping is going to need maintenance just to keep it looking good. The interior, your paint, your appliances, your washer, your dryer, all of this comes into consideration. So if you are not planning for maintenance, excuse me, if you're not planning for maintenance and you're not setting money aside every single month, or if you don't start this out, and this is what I would recommend starting out buying a property with reserves already in the bank, not waiting to get those reserves. If you don't do that, then you're setting yourself up for massive, massive failure. So please don't overlook that. Um, Another area that people tend to overlook is comps for rent. You know, researching the how much money you could get for rent is huge. I've been in a situation where, I can't tell you how many situations I've been in where you think you're going to get X amount for rent and you don't. You actually get way lower. And if you would have taken the time and just researched the property, maybe look on Zillow, Redfin, apartments.com. If you are an agent or you know an agent, have them research it. And if you would have known, man, I couldn't, there's no way I could have got 2,200. It was really only 1,800. If you would have taken the time to research that, you wouldn't have hurt yourself because that $400 a month difference is massive in cash flow for any of those out there who are rental owners and landlords. You know how important $400 a month in cash flow is. That's huge. Maybe you're trying to refinance that property after just renovating it, right? Or maybe you're going to purchase it and you're going into it with the assumption of 2,200, your mortgage, your taxes. I mean, everything is based on 2,200, and all of a sudden now you're only getting 18. Now you're out of pocket $400 every single month, and this has just become a money pit instead of a cash cow. So please, please, please know your comps for rent. A couple other things, planning for vacancies. Look, I heard Dave Ramsey say this one time, and he was right in a sense where, you can't ever plan perfect. Like you can't ever assume your rentals are going to be rented 100%. Things are going to happen. People may get sick. Unfortunately, one of your tenants may pass away and now it's vacant. There's so many things that could happen. There could be just a normal transaction where a normal transition from you having a tenant, they move out, you have to touch up paint, and maybe it takes a couple of months to find a tenant. That is time. That is your vacancy right there, those 2 months. So I usually say whatever your gross rent is, whatever your gross amount is, take about 5 to 8% of that and subtract it and have that as your vacancy rate. Because if you can save 5 to 8% of your gross rent and you can set that aside for, all the vacancies, when that happens, you won't be hurting. It won't be as big of a deal. Like, oh man, I'm sitting here. It's been a month. I don't have money coming in. I didn't save nothing. And now you're struggling trying to find money to pay your mortgage. Don't be that person. So, another area kind of goes along with maintenance is future repairs. Look, future repairs are never something we want to talk about because it's like, oh, I got to spend 10 grand on a roof, or man, I got to spend 7, 8 grand on painting, all kinds of things. And it sounds like an expense and it sounds bad. And yes, it is an expense, but more than that, it is a tax write-off. It is something that is going to benefit you. Not only is it a tax write-off, but being able to maintain your properties at the highest level for that area, it just simply means you can get the most rent possible. And if you've been watching the news, rents go up, house prices go up. And so if you're maintaining that value in your home or in your property, you can now increase the rent along with the market, but you still have the original mortgage. So if you're able to increase rent and you're able to improve the property or maintain that nice level that you have, you're going to always, always cash flow. And 10, 15 years down the road, you still have this rental property. Guess what? You're going to cash flow. Okay, moving on to the second thing that I have seen all the time is not planning for when tenants damage or they skip out on you. This is something that kind of goes along with that vacancy rate, but it goes a little deeper because there are going to be times no matter how much you screen your tenants, no matter how much you try to vet out your tenants and really see if these are good people, you can run their credit, you can check with their employer, you can check with past landlords. Everything can check out, but people are very unpredictable. You know how you get sometimes when you get a little upset or whatever, things get the best of us. Well, imagine if you have a wife or a husband and a couple of kids, and all of a sudden you lose your job and you are 40, 50% of the income of that house. And now all of a sudden you cannot pay that rent. Some people are going to take the high road and just talk to their landlord and try to work something out. Maybe they'll just have to move or something. But sometimes people take the low road. Some people will just simply skip out. They will completely just leave the house. They will damage it along the way. I've been there, I've done that. I've unfortunately had to take people to small claims court because they want to literally drive a vehicle through the garage, not the garage door, but the wall from the garage into the house. Don't want to tell anybody, don't want to pay rent, want to just leave. And unfortunately, scenarios like this happen. So, what can you do to prevent that? Or what can you do to actually prepare for that when it happens? Well, what you're going to do is you're going to always, at a minimum, this is including your vacancies and maintenance and all that that you want to do, have a minimum of 4 months of expenses in an account fully covered. That is minimum. If you can do more, great. 6 months is even better. But if all you can do a minimum is 4 months, if you have to push it to three, that's okay. Four is really ideal. This means for 4 months, you can cover your mortgage, your electricity, your utilities. I mean, everything in that property while it sits completely vacant. Now, obviously, it should not sit longer than 4 months. If you're trying to find a tenant, if that's the case, maybe it's time to consider hiring a property manager, or if you have a property manager, getting a new one. Um, 4 months minimum. Don't keep anything less because when things come up, you're not going to be struggling trying to find where am I going to get this money? Because if you have to take someone to small claims court, it could take months. You're not going to want your property sitting there for months while you're waiting on a judgment, maybe from the judge or the court. You want to be able to renovate your property, fix it up, notate all the damages, send that off to the court, go through that process. But at the same time, you're able to rent your property, get it back on the market, get it rented, and you can recoup that money later. So minimum 4 months. All right, let's talk about the third one that this is a big mistake new investors make because look, most of us new investors, we are going to be working a full-time job. There's very few new investors out there who are able to just completely quit, have enough money to live on, and be able to go out and buy rental property. Hire yourself a good property manager. I can't stress this enough, not just because I am a property manager and we manage properties, but because I've been there where I know trying to work full time and having your own rental properties, that is a huge stress. Now, thankfully, me right now, I'm all in real estate. This is all I do all day, every day. So I can manage my own properties and help other people. But imagine you're working a 9 to 5, Monday through Friday. That's a pretty good schedule for most people. You're working your 40, maybe 50 hours a week, maybe more, depending on your job. You have a wife, a husband, some kids, and you got a full life to take care of, right? You got all of your just parental duties, you got your spouse, you got time you just want to take for yourself, you got health and fitness, you got all kinds of things that going on in your life. Having multiple rental properties is great, but trying to manage all that from finding tenants, collecting rent, managing maintenance requests, this is a full-time job. We currently manage several properties right now, and it's a full-time job. Now, there are times where it's quiet, but when it's not quiet, it is not quiet. It is full blown, all in, 1,000%. And here's the other part. You might get a call 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock at night from that tenant saying, hey, something burst in the attic and I got water coming out the ceiling now, which by the way has happened to me. You don't want to have to get that phone call. Wake up in the middle of the night, try to figure out who to call, what to do. Hiring a property manager, yes, they'll take 5 to 10% of the gross rent. But again, just like your other things, this is an expense. This is a write off to help offset any income. And think about it. If you are a W 2 earner or a 1099, whatever it is, and you make a lot of money in your job and you like what you do, maybe you don't really like what you do, but you just make a lot of money. So that's why you're there. You're going to need tax write offs. I know there's some of you who are going to listen to this and think, you know what, man, Uncle Sam, he loves me. He takes 10, 15, 20, maybe 40 grand from me every year. How can I offset this? Property management with that expense is just another way to offset. So don't discount hiring a property manager. So, number four, here's a big one. Something that I didn't know that there was a right time to do this until maybe a few years ago. And I started learning there is actually a right time to sell your property. And let me explain. So, selling a property, you'll hear me say sometimes you should hold on to your properties because you don't want to just, fix and flip. There's a whole fix and flip idea out there of just buying a property and selling it for cash. And that has its place. But holding on to your properties is that's where the real wealth comes from real estate. So why would you want to sell your property? Well, here's the best example of when to sell your property. Let's say you own a single family home that you bought, 10 years ago. And let's say the market has increased quite a bit. And let's say right now you have $200,000 of equity in that house because you've been paying the mortgage and appreciation has caused it to rise. Well, that $200,000 can buy you in some parts of the country a lot more than just a single family home. And so not knowing when to sell your property means you could miss out. And so if you are in a good market, let's say it's a good seller's market, and you have a property that has all this equity built into it, and you have an opportunity to sell it. Not only that, but there are some other properties, maybe a fourplex that you could buy. It's going to cash flow more. It's probably going to give you a better tax position. And here's the beautiful part. When you go to sell that house, we've all heard of capital gains tax. You're not going to get hit with capital gains tax because you're going to do what's called a 1031 tax exchange. That is going to allow you to completely omit capital gains taxes because you're buying something that is of equal or greater value than what you just sold. So if this new property is 500,000, that's what you have to sell your current property for. And if it's not worth that much, perfect, then it's easy. But not knowing when you should take advantage of selling your home is massive. Maybe you have a fourplex and you have the opportunity to sell four and get six, and that six is going to cash flow more. So always keeping up with your priorities. Now, how can you keep track of your properties? What is the best way to keep track of your properties and know when this is a good time to sell? Well, I use sometimes spreadsheets. There's different programs out there that will help you to manage, your property's value. But honestly, keeping up with the market is the best thing you're going to do. Making sure you track what is selling in that neighborhood, what is selling around you, how much are things selling for. Keeping track of that is going to be your indicator of when you should sell. When you have enough equity built in to where you can sell your property and buy something bigger and better, that is when you know you should sell. So let's move on to this next area. This is a big one because there's going to be a lot of lenders out there that are going to probably hear this, get mad at me because it's the truth. And unfortunately, a lot of lenders don't know it's the truth. And that is thinking that refinancing your property is a good option, because let me tell you, it is not a good option. There's only, in my opinion, one time you should refinance a property, and that's if you're doing what's called the BRRRR method, or when you buy a property that's distressed, you fix it up, you rent it out, and then you refinance it to get a traditional mortgage. That is when you should refinance. But if you have a property and you just bought a rental property, and in 5, 6, 7, 8 years, the bank comes to you and says, "Hey, we can help you refinance. We'll save you $200 a month. That'll be $200 a month in cash flow extra." And let's say you were already cash flowing 300. Now you can cash flow 500. Man, that sounds too good to be true, right? There's no way I would want to pass that up, right? But what if I told you that a lot, if not most lenders, loan officers don't even know that refinancing costs you more money? Now, a lot of lenders are probably going to, or loan officers are going to be like, what are you talking about? No, it doesn't. It saves you money. Well, here's how it works. The first 7 to 10 years, depending on the bank, that mortgage payment that you're paying, a majority of that, probably 80 to 90%, maybe more, depending on the bank, most of that mortgage payment is all in interest. All of it is interest. So if your monthly payment is 1,500 a month, I guarantee you, you'll have your insurance and your taxes, can't get away from that. But if your principal and interest is 1,100 a month, probably 1,000 of that, if not more, is going straight to the bank in interest. You're barely touching the principal or the actual loan. So what happens is after 7 to 10 years, that amortization schedule, it switches, and the amortization schedule is just the long schedule of every single payment you'll ever make for the life of that loan. That's that big long sheet that they give you that no one ever reads because, let's face it, it's got a lot of numbers and it's difficult. That kind of switches after about 7 to 10 years, where now the bank is not making as much money off of you anymore. And so what they do is they say, hey, look, you can refinance. Your property is appreciated in value. You've paid off a little bit of principal. You're in a little bit more favorable position as far as loan to value. Go ahead and refinance. We'll give you a little bit lower interest rate. You'll save a couple $100 a month. You'll cash flow. And it sounds good on the surface. But what they don't tell you is number one, your loan starts all the way over. So it's almost as if those first 7 to 10 years didn't matter, because now your loan's starting over. And we just talked about it. In the first 7 to 10 years of any new loan, guess what? Your mortgage is almost all going to the bank in interest. So now you've restarted that. So now you're talking a potential 14 to 20 years of pretty much 100%, and I'd probably say like 90% of your mortgage payment going to the bank in pure profit for the bank. And you're barely touching your principal. Now, both me and my mentor have done calculations on this. Every type of mortgage, we've even said, okay, we're going to save 2% in interest rate, which is a huge jump. We have yet to find a mortgage, a new mortgage that actually saves money. In the end, every single mortgage, you will end up spending tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars more in interest. That is wild that no one knows that. There's very few people who know that. And all the loan officers can see, all they've been taught is just teach that, hey, it saves you a couple $100 a month. They don't stop to look at the total cost of the loan. They don't stop to look that, hey, it's going to take me an extra 7 to 10 years to pay off this new loan. Well, that 7 to 10 years, I could have been cash flowing the original mortgage amount, which could be $1,000, $1,200 a month. I can invest that and outpace what I would have been saving on my mortgage. So it is not the loan officer's fault. It is the bank. And I don't want to say it's the bank's fault. It's just the bank's way of doing business. It's how banks make money. They are in the business to make money. So thinking that refinancing is a good option will actually end up hurting. And the same goes for your primary. I know this is about investing, but the same goes for your primary as well. So hopefully you all have learned something on this first episode. Go ahead, follow me here on this podcast. If you're watching this on YouTube, subscribe to the channel. Follow me on Instagram, Facebook, so I can connect with you all. Please ask me as many questions as you want. Please don't hesitate. Reach out. I want to talk to everyone about real estate. So until I see you in the next episode, let's remember to stay wealthy.